Welcome back to Silverstone, everybody, as the GT Cup Championship visits the home of the British Grand Prix. We've already been here and seen one sprint race earlier on today. Fantastic racing action was provided, albeit there was a slight delay in getting that underway due to an extended safety car period. But that was just the first of two races here today. We've got the pit stop race coming up in just a few moments' time. So with that race earlier on today, let's look back at some of the highlights and the action from the first sprint race of the weekend. 25 minutes are on the clock. We're about to get round 15 of the 2022 GT Cup Championship underway here at Silverstone. The lights go out and they charge their way up towards Copse Corner for the first time. There's an enormous field of GT cars, and as they head up towards Copse Corner, it's the Group GTO Radical that, in a straight line of Steve Burgess driving solo for this weekend, sneaks up the inside to take up the early lead of the race. We know, Sam, that Radical is quick in a straight line. I didn't expect Steve Burgess to get on with it straight away. He leads the way.
I didn't expect that door to be open. I think he might have caught Loggy napping, and there's big damage to the Beluga Porsche and unfortunately the brand new Ferrari that's out this weekend.
Yeah, that's John Saunders that's got tangled up with what looked like the number 50 Beluga Racing Porsche, so we'll have to wait and see. That being the case, that's James Wallace, who is the championship leader. It looked as though it was the number 50 car, but it is, by the look of things, Steve Burgess leading the way. Mike Price was having to get defensive to stop the McLaren, the number 23 car of Ian Campbell, wiggling his way through. But we've already, I think, got a couple of casualties in the early stages, and that's caused a bit of a split in the pack, hasn't it? We've also got the two cars that started from the pit lane as well, coming down towards the bottom of the hangar straight. No, it's the 51 Beluga car, so thank goodness it's not the championship leader. It's Ria Lucas, I'm afraid, however, that has got tangled up with John Saunders in the Ferrari. Now, they're on the outside of Copse, Sam. Not an ideal place. Hopefully we'll be able to stay with just localised yellows. And Ron Trenker's had a problem as well. That car had an issue yesterday when it was in the hands in testing of John Lancaster, and had a braking issue which caused damage to the car. But that's three that we've lost in the early stages, I'm afraid, Sam.
Exactly. For Ron, this is the perfect thing. He's seen the safety car, he's got a puncher. All he has to do is try and keep on this lead lap, and it should catch back up to the pack if this is a long safety car. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like we can just push those cars behind the safety barrier, and hopefully it's only a one lap safety car and we can still get maybe 20 minutes of racing.
So there is the number 17 car. That is the orange raced by JMH car, and that's got a front right puncture as well. So that is Will Dendy, who is limping his way in towards pit lane. Will was hoping for a group win in Group GTH. And there's the whereabouts of one of the missing Formula Woman cars. That's the number 65 car. So that's Sarah Miser. And where is that? That is the exit of Copse Corner as well, is it? No, that's Maggots. That's Maggots. Beckett's, yeah.
Yes, that's. It looks like she's got a little bit of left rear damage. I don't know if I'm seeing that properly, but it looks a little bit low.
Yeah, rear left, yeah. So lights are off on the safety car. We are finally, with 8 minutes and a bit of change, about to get some racing underway. Now, the good thing for Steve Burgess, he can decide when he wants to go, and he'll go in a straight line, and we know that Radical is quick in a straight line, so I would be very surprised, Sam, if he's not leading still by the time we get towards Copse.
Yeah, definitely. He should definitely be leading. We saw that first sector, he was almost a second faster in qualifying in that first sector, but the middle sector seems to lose it compared to the GT3 Mercedes. So Addy will just put the power down now, get a really good exit, and you'll see him pull away at the start of this straight.
Yeah, already you can see he's stretching the legs at the wheel of the Radical and charges his way over the start-finish line. Ian Loggy, Hugo Cook, then the car of Simon Orange, followed by Mike Price at the wheel of that light green Mercedes. They all shuffle their way up towards Copse Corner for the first time. There's Tom Barrow in the Group GTB leading BMW. There's the leading Group GTH Porsche just heading through shot, and you can see the orange Ginetta in the background as the Group GTA leader. But Steve Burgess already starting to open up the daylight between himself and Ian Loggy. He's certainly the slower car at the moment. He's the cork in the bottle, and I think once he gets unpicked, or if he gets unpicked, then it might be 1, 2, maybe even possibly 3 places that he loses. Now, Hugo Cook trying around the outside at Luffield is a bit brave, because he could have been forced wide there on the exit, but fair play to Ian Loggy. He didn't push him too wide, and now Hugo Cook is looking to try and draw himself fully alongside. Is he going to be ahead by the time they get to Copse? He's not. Andre Borodin has a spin, but he does sweep all the way around the outside at Copse Corner, keeps it within the confines of the circuit, and that was a stunning overtake from Hugo Cook. Brave to go around the outside at Luffield. Fair play to Ian Loggy for not pushing him wide. Stuck with the task in hand, but then makes a mistake and clobbers the curb as they head in towards Beckett's, and almost unsettled the Mercedes there. And those two are busy battling away at the moment. And was there a mistake there? I think there was, wasn't there? Yeah, James runs wide. Chris Hart draws himself alongside, and there's a bash between the pair of them.
That's not racing in my eyes. That's just crash bang and wallop. So that will really annoy Chris. I was speaking to him before this race. He said he's all out. He's got nothing to lose. So I'm sure Chris will give it back somewhere, and we'll see the outcome.
Yeah, James's mistake. He ran wide, and then he didn't really need to try and close the door to that degree on the Mercedes. So fingers crossed it hasn't caused damage to either of those cars, because whilst it was sort of wheel-to-wheel damage, you can still rip a tyre valve off as a bare minimum, can't you?
Mike did it really nice there. He went really wide through the loop, which just gives you a run all the way down here. So that's really interesting as the clock goes down to 0. So this should be Steve Burgess's win.
It certainly looks as though that is going to be the case for Steve Burgess. He's about to come through and claim what for him would be only his second win of the 2022 championship season. But can Mike Price do anything in the closing stages of this race? And are we also going to see a further shuffle in Group GTH? Steve Burgess claims the win, his second of the season. It is going to be Hugo Cook makes his debut in the championship that finishes in second place. Simon Orange comes through in third. Ian Loggy does hold off Mike Price to finish in fourth. And for the lead of Group GTC, it's all changed. Jensen Lunn has gone through and ahead of James Webb, and Lucky Kier has followed him through. The light blue Lamborghini was leading the group, and somehow, and this will go down fantastically well with the team after the troubles of yesterday, Jensen Lunn in the sole Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini claims the win in Group GTC and finishes in what was 9th position overall. We've also got still the lead battle for Group GTH, I think, to come over the start-finish line, and here they come now. They might have had a wheel-to-wheel contact at this part of the circuit on the previous lap, but it does look as though we are just about going to see a win in Group GTH for James Wallace, who manages to hold off Chris Hart towards the end. But the story for me there, Jensen Lund picking up the lead in Group GTC in the closing stages of the race. What a win for the team. That will go down well. Yes, what a race it was for Top Cats Racing with Hex.com. And after that race, we did manage to catch up with Jensen Lund to try and gauge some reaction on what for them was a really important win at the start of the weekend. Jensen, we've just seen the first sprint race of the weekend, and you've already had Group GTC wins this year, but with what the team have been through over the last 24 hours, that is one heck of a win. What was it, third in group with a lap to go, and here you are as a group winner?
As a special race, obviously we had a big accident in testing, so our other driver Warren is recovering in hospital with some broken ribs and stuff, so the team's been under a bit of a cloud this weekend, but the race just came to us at the end. I mean, we had the big safety car period, as you know, and then the guys on the pit wall said you've got 4 laps to make it happen. I was in P3 at the time. And just went for it. I mean, I managed to get by lucky. We had some really good wing mirror to wing mirror racing. Just caught the Webbs on the last corner of the last lap and got by. So that was an emotional one for sure. And I know Warren was watching from his hospital bed, so really emotional. Meant a lot to the guys as well, that one. Yeah.
I suppose you argue a welcome distraction, but business as usual, which is what racing's about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got our backers, Hex.com. So, we do everything we can. I think one of the tweets was that Top Cats are down but not out. So we've got the other car, and the car's been performing perfectly. They both were, really. It was just unfortunate what happened in testing. It was just a small error that caused the whole car to be destroyed. But we're still strong, and we won the race. So, yeah, so pleased, so pleased.
Well done on a win. Richly deserved, particularly this weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
So good to catch up with what was Jensen Lunn after that win earlier on, and yeah, hopefully that puts a smile on Warren Gilbert's face whilst he watches on and is on the process of hopefully recovering after his injuries from yesterday. But we will see that car out shared by Jensen Lunn, and Charlotte Birch will be joining him for this race. So with one of the cars now having been removed from the entry list and withdrawn because of that incident yesterday, Charlotte Birch gets the opportunity to jump on board the number 9 car with Jensen Lunn and try and see what she might be able to do in this pit stop race that is coming up. So because it's a pit stop race, it is 50 minutes. The way that the grid is set for this pit stop race is based on the fastest lap times that we saw from the sprint race earlier on today, which means that it is going to be Hugo Cook who set the fastest lap time in the race early on that will start that red and black Mercedes from the pole position, and lining up alongside him will be the number 67 McLaren as it picks its way through the grid, which will be Simon Orange, but that car on the outside of the front row of the grid isn't quite there yet. I'm delighted to say joining me in the commentary box again for this first pit stop race of the weekend is Sam Neary. Sam, we saw a few cars with problems in the race earlier on. Any news that you've been able to pick up from your wanders up and down the pit lane chatting to anybody out there?
Nothing much really. I'm going to find out what happened with the trade centre full of women cars. It just looked like the yellow Ferrari stopped quite a bit at turn 1, and it caused a little bit of a pinch, and they tried to go down the inside, and it seemed like there was just a bit of contact between about 4 or 5 of them. So no one's fault really, just unfortunately one of those things that happens. But yeah, that's about all I could find out in this long pit lane that I just realised I had to walk all the way up and down it.
Yes, I've done a few miles up and down this pit lane over the years. Sam, you're a young lad. You didn't want to do a track walk earlier. You were saying because circuits are too long, you use a moped, and now you don't want to walk up and down the Silverstone pit lane. Come on, you're a young man. You're a young man. Story of the race for me earlier on was Jensen Lund's final lap. You know, we've just interviewed him, and we'll have seen the interview that we did with him. You know. Great result for the team, bearing in mind the difficulties that they had, and the flip side of that is, you know, John Saunders returning to the championship for the first time in 5 years gets to turn 1 in his Ferrari. You know, bittersweet, isn't it, motorsport? One end of the spectrum, and then you've got the other.
Yeah, exactly. I always say motorsport is 95% lows and 5% highs, but the 5% highs cancels out any of the lows. But yeah, when you look at it that way, I don't understand why any of us really do it. But you know, it is incredible. So yeah, for Jensen Lund, it was a great first race, and hopefully we can see them sort of repeat that in this race and see what they can do. And yeah, for the Ferrari returning, that is obviously a shame to not make it past turn 1.
So there we've got Ian Logie just popping on his glasses, make sure that he is absolutely comfortable and settled in the Ram Racing Mercedes. He will start from 6th position on the grid, Ian Logie. And it's not just grid positions that count in this one. You can look at grid positions, but you also need to take into account the success seconds that are allocated, Sam, because, you know, if you're an amateur driver pairing, let's say, or sporting drivers as they're called in GT Cup, if 2 of those paired together spend 60 seconds stationary in the pit lane. If you're a pro sporting partnered with a sporting, so in other words a semi-pro, you spend 70 seconds. If you're partnered with a pro, it's 75 seconds. But then we have to add in the success seconds that are carried over from previous pit stop races. So if you win your group, it's 20. If you're second in your group, it's 15. If you're third in your group, it's 10. So it's not just a case of looking at the grid, it's working out how long those cars come the pit window will be stationary, and are we going to see a flip of that order?
The pit stop penalties in GT Cup are harsh. You know, that 20 seconds you're getting when you win a race, it is difficult to try and make it up. And the reason they have the differences between the pro sporting and the pro and the AM is because the pro sporting is supposed to be a silver graded driver.
Yeah.
It's the idea. So they're not as quick as a pro in theory. Sometimes that obviously isn't the case. But that's the idea, that they only get 10 seconds and the pro gets an extra 10 seconds than that, because the pro can make up more time than a pro sporting should be able to.
One thing that's also worth mentioning is there was an amended result issued for the race earlier on, and what that did was, very sadly, it excluded the number 26 Paddock Motorsport Thomas Shahan McLaren. I'm sure it was unintentional, but I gather there was some overtaking under yellows, which obviously is a big no-no when we've got marshals and officials working out on track. I'm sure it was unintentional, but I think the footage identified that yes, it happened, so he was put to the back of the grid. So that's a car that's going to have to stay out of trouble, work its way through the order, see where they might end up.
Unfortunately, it's rightly so, though. If you overtake on the yellows, we know how hard these marshals work. And
yeah.
They do put their lives at risk when they work on these cars that are on track. So as soon as you see a yellow flag, you just need to lift off and make sure you aren't speeding at all or overtaking. And it's a big thing to ignore. So
I think fair play to Mayer when he looked at the video footage, held his hand up and said, yeah, absolutely, you know, nothing else you can do. So we can see that the MSVR BMW safety car is positioned at the front of the grid. The grid is fully lined up. We should have some 35 cars ready to start this race. We'll try and guide you through not just the grid, but also the starting drivers, and pick up on how many seconds they will remain stationary in the pit lane. So we know it takes 24 seconds to drive through the pits at the pit lane speed limit. Every car has to be minimum stationary for a minimum of 60 seconds, 60 seconds. So when we guide you through the grid, we'll give you the starting drivers and tell you how many seconds they have to remain stationary come the pit stop window, and we'll pick up on when those pit stop windows are as well. So off they go on their formation lap. Time to guide you through what is a very, very full grid of cars for round 16 of the 2022 GT Cup Championship. So as they all head off the line, let's rattle you through the grid. It is on the front row of the grid, Hugo Cook, that starts from pole position. That car remains stationary for 95 seconds in the pits, and alongside is Simon Orange, stationary for 90. Row 2 of the grid, Steve Burgess, 60 seconds, alongside the number 11 car of Mike Price, 95 seconds. Row 3 of the grid, Ian Campbell, 85 seconds, and Ian Loggy, who's stationary for 70. And row 4 of the grid, John Whitehouse starts at 75 seconds, alongside Leo Lucas, 95 seconds stationary. Row 5 of the grid, Graham Tilley, 75 seconds, alongside Lucky Kira, who is stationary for 95 seconds. And then it's Charlotte Birch, 60 seconds, alongside James Webb, also on 60 seconds. Row 7 of the grid, Andre Borodin, 95 seconds, and Tom Barrow, who's on 80. Row 8 sees Roy Millington, 90 seconds, alongside Adrian Watt, stationary for 60. The 9th row of the grid is going to be James Wallace, stationary for 90 seconds, alongside 60 seconds for Chris Hart. And row 10 of the grid, Will Dendy driving solo in this one, 60 seconds, alongside Mark Hopton, stationary for 75. The 11th row of the grid is Kavi Jundu, 70 seconds stationary, alongside Philip Carter, who'll be stationary for 75. And row 12 of the grid, it's Tim Kresick, 75 seconds, alongside John Curry, who's sharing with Phil Keane, the pro for this weekend, so he's stationary for 90. Row 13 is Darren Kell, 85 seconds, and alongside Darren Kell will be the car of Paul Maxfield at 60 seconds. And then we move on to the next of the cars, which is going to be Rob Young, 70 seconds, and alongside Rob Young is David Franklin for 75. Ria Lucas, 60 seconds stationary, alongside Ron Trenker, who'll be stationary for 75. And then it's Erica Hoffman on 60, alongside John Saunders on 70 seconds, with Sarah Misser, who is stationary for 60, alongside Richard Chamberlain, if he's out there, because he missed the race earlier on, stationary for 60, and bumped to the back of the grid, and stationary for 80 seconds as well is Tamer Shahan. So that gives you the grid, it gives you the starting drivers, it gives you the amount of seconds that they need to remain stationary, and hopefully this time we'll go green all of the way.
Yeah, we saw how long the safety car period was last time, so hopefully we can get 50 minutes of straight racing, and then the pit stop window comes in, and as just mentioned, there's a lot of pit stop penalties for a lot of people, so that will really shake up this grid quite a lot and make some interesting racing.
Well, it's a 50-minute race, two separate pit stop windows, so if you're in the cars towards the sharp end of the grid, that's Group GTO, Group GT3, Group GTC, they stop between the 24th and the 29th minute of this 50-minute race, i.e. when there's between 26 and 21 minutes remaining. If you're in Group GTB, Group GTH or Group GTA, you stop between the 29th and the 36th minute of the race, i.e. when there are between 21 minutes and 15 minutes remaining, and those are the pit windows. And as we say, those were also the times when we went through the grid for how long each car has to remain stationary in the pit lane, and then you add to that the 24 seconds to work your way down the pit lane at the pit lane speed limit. You spotted something there, Sam. What did you spot?
I just thought I saw the Paddock Motorsport car driving down the middle in between two cars, which is very odd. He's supposed to be in 2x2 underneath the bridge, and that's usually the point where the race director wants you to be in 2x2, no weaving. But it just seems all a little bit muddled up in the GTH, so I hope that gets sorted before the start line.
That'd be the number 25 car, wouldn't it, if Kavi Jundu, because we know that the other car from Paddock Motorsport in their GT4 McLaren is towards the tail end of the field. So here we go, round 16 of the GT Cup Championship for 2022 is about to get going here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. So we had an incident at turn 1 last time through. Let's hope we go green all of the way this time. Lights go out, we're away and racing, and not a bad start from Hugo Cook. Watch out for the fast starting Radical, of course, of Steve Burgess from the second row of the grid, but he's not going to sneak through here to pick up the lead. And thankfully, I think they're all treading slightly more gingerly round through turn 1. A couple of cars, including Roy Millington and Adrian Watt, running wide at the wheel of the Ferrari and the Porsche respectively, but that's a sensible thing to do, Sam, isn't it? Rather than run wide and try and come back on quickly, run wide and stay out wide and slowly work your way back on. But the Radical, it did by the end take up the lead of the race. I thought it might be quick off the line. It looked as though it was boxed in at Copse and was in second or third place, but Steve Burgess is leading the way.
I think Steve Burgess can find a gap anywhere right now. I think that's his way around Silverstone. He just needs to find the gaps and go for them. And we'll see again this Radical start to pull away in the first sector. And it's whether Hugo Cook has an answer for it, whether he can keep up to it. And then when he hands over to Mark Clutton, if that can then be sort of windowed down and make the overtake. But he found the gap, he went for it, and he's got the lead. Yeah,
we spoke to Steve earlier on. We haven't had time to play the interview of it, but Steve was saying what he wants is no safety car. He thinks that during his first part of this stint, because he's driving solo in this race, so he will remain behind the wheel for the full 50 minutes, he thinks he might be able to build up something like maybe a 20-second advantage. He knows he's got less time to spend in the pits than some of the cars behind him, but equally he then knows the pros are jumping into those cars, and he knows that gap will come down. So he was saying all of this with a smile on his face. I think he's looking forward to this race.
I think he definitely is. It's always fun. I think it's fun when you're getting chased and also trying to build a gap, because it's sort of a waiting game. He's now, at this point in the race, he's the fastest man on track. He's trying to build the gap, and then at the end of the race, he's then realising he has to look in his mirrors, and he's no longer the fastest man, and then it's defending. So he's got two sides of the coin here, and I think he does enjoy it a lot.
A great race going on between the two Ram Racing Mercedes. Mike Price just got across the nose of Ian Loggie's the car there as they went in towards the braking area for Brooklands. Mike Price was very decisive with the fact that he was not going to let the cured leukemia supported car work its way through. So the Scotsman Ian Loggie is just going to have to try and see if he can work out where else he might be able to attack that car of Mike Price, that currently the light green Mercedes occupies fourth position. So Steve Burgess leads Hugo Cook, leads Simon Orange. That's the top three at the moment, as the rest of the cars all field their way through, including the lead battle of Group GTC just heading through shot there. That looks as though it is James Webb that's leading Group GTC in the early stages at the wheel of the light blue Lamborghini Huracan.
We saw the battle in GTC last race have a
Good
really good ending, and then three are together again. So I'm sure we'll see this great battle forming. So you know, it's great to see this sort of battling all in every single class in GT Cup, and that's what GT Cup has to offer, is this good racing in every class.
Absolutely. If you've got a car, largely it will fit into one of the classes. Group GT3 is for the GT3 spec cars. If you're wondering what Group GTC is, all of these Lamborghinis run to Super Trofeo specification. So Group GTC, not just for Lamborghinis. If you've got a Ferrari that's 5 years old or less than, and it runs to European Ferrari specification of 488, you can drop that into it. Or even, I would have thought, some of the Porsche Super Cup cars, the new 992 wouldn't drop in.
Yeah, it should do. All these sort of Carrera Cup, as you're saying, Super Trofeo, they all have this idea of more power, less aero, and that's what that class is. It's all about the power. And oh, what a move from Hugo Cook going down the inside. Steve shouldn't let that happen. He won't let him go around the outside.
It's the part of the circuit that doesn't favour the Radical, though, isn't it? Because it's quite aero dependent, that part, and the Radical has the guts, but it doesn't have the aero. Now in a straight line onto the Wellington Straight, Radical should power his way back through, and indeed he does. But Hugo Cook, by the time they head out of Luffield, is going to be right back on the coattails of the Radical again.
Yeah, Hugo's looking very racy again. He seems to not have the starts yet, but that's all comes with time, sort of getting the tyres warm and getting the brakes up to temperature and sort of getting on it straight away. It doesn't seem to be his forte at the minute, but you know, at this point in the race, he's just got traction out that corner, and we'll see Steve pull back through to take P1 probably before Cox, but Hugo's definitely in his mirrors.
I was asking Steve, because of the amount of power that the Radical has got, but the relative lack of aero compared to the GT3 Mercedes that sits behind him, is that going to mean that through the corners he's going to overwork those tyres to a larger degree through the 50-minute race? He didn't really give me an answer, but you'd have thought, you know, if the car doesn't quite have the aero, it's going to move around more on the corners. You're going to put more load through those tyres, and therefore it is surely going to struggle towards the end of the stint.
Yeah, what you'll find is that the reason the Radical struggles through these corners is not the overheating, it's the tyre size. It isn't as wide as a GT3 tyre. So you'll see through Luffield in areas where Hugo, where he's got less pace, it's a slower corner, he has more traction on the rear, and that's why he can get these moves and get the power on the exit, which is very frustrating when you're the car behind. When you get a better exit and then it just powers past you down the straight. But he sort of just has to work out where he can pass better.
We were just looking briefly there at the lead battle of Group GTH. This is the lead battle of Group GTC, with Lucky Kira looking to try and attack the number 13 Lamborghini of James Webb, who drives solo in this race, James. So he still hangs on to it, only just though from Lucky Kira, with the Charlotte Birch just dropping a little bit further away from these two Lamborghinis. She's not that far away. She's also got Andre Borodin's Greystone GT McLaren sitting behind. This is number 91 David Franklin. He's having a good little squabble with Erica Hoffman, that will be, who started behind the wheel of that Formula Woman car, and you can see the other Formula Woman car is just a little bit further up the road. That will be Sarah Misser, is it, that's started that number 65 car. But here comes the attack from Erica Hoffman. Is she going to get through and ahead of David Franklin? Not quite. David Franklin, who returns to the championship, hangs on to the place.
We know how quick that McLaren GTH car is in a straight line, so hopefully she can get the run sorted out the corner, get the power down and make a move, but she has to be careful. There's a Beluga car behind her. She tries to go down inside. We obviously didn't see that, but I think that could be a dumb move if she can get down inside and then try and keep it on the outside for the going onto the wing complex. Yeah,
we'll try and pick up on that. We'll try and pick up on what's going on for the lead of Group GTH again as well. It was the number 17 orange McLaren of Will Dendy that was leading Group GTH last time we looked. So here we go. No, she didn't quite get it done there, did she? And now bottling up behind is Ria Lucas at the wheel of the number 51 for Luga car. So it's sort of 3 cars all squabbling away. Good fight it is though, but this time Erica Hoffman surely has the inside line as they head in towards the braking area for Village. Yep, through goes the DTO prepared. Trade Centre Formula Woman backed and supported. McLaren gains a place. The 570S has been such a competitive car for so many years. It's almost a shame, isn't it, that the recent announcement suggests that McLaren are replacing it, and out comes the new GT3 and GT4 homologated cars soon.
It's always what happens. It's all about the big bucks, Mark. So you always have to look further into the future. But yeah, the 570 has been a great car over the years, but it just seems to get that little bit more outdated now as the GT4 cars are going more towards aero rather than power. You look at the Merc and the Audi and the Porsche, all very surprisingly aero dependent. Even though it looks like a road car, they have this aero that the McLaren struggles with.
I'm talking about new cars as well. The Ferrari 488 that we got out there, Roy Millington in the field. Just literally this weekend, the new 296 GT3 was launched as well, wasn't it? So we're looking forward to, at some point, those cars filtering down into GT Cup. Might be a year or two, but they're on their way.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on that thing. It looks like a thing of beauty. That's not, if Mercedes are listening, I don't want to get my hands on it. But if they aren't,
you do.
I definitely want to get into it.
This is a lead battle for Group GTH. Will Dendy, who has been a star at the wheel of the Orange Racing powered by JMH number 17 McLaren this year. He is driving solo in this one. Patrick Collins, I think, will be on driving duties tomorrow, but he's having to drive the wheels off the thing because behind him, flashing their lights, trying to do anything to put him off, is Chris Hart. Now, come the pit stop window, both of these cars will stop for exactly the same amount of time. Will Dendy will remain behind the wheel. Chris Hart will give way to Stephen Walton, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there as we go back for the lead of the race. And, well, Hugo Cook is not going away, is he, as far as Steve Burgess is concerned?
He's not at all. This is the point where Hugo now has to just work out where his car's faster. He's stuck behind him for a few laps and he's tried the same moves. This is the point where he has to just stay behind and don't make a move for maybe 2 laps and just confuse Steve to why you're not making a move and then make one big move and make it stick. He's constantly getting the run here and there, but then the Radical's just got more power. So if I was him, I'd stay behind, don't sort of try and confuse Steve as to why I'm not overtaking, and then make one big move. As we see Lucky Gary try and go down inside, and he's passed. But that's for the lead of GTC, so that's really good. And Charlotte Birch go around the outside as well, so very interesting. Yeah,
that was changed for leading group GTC. Andre Borodin's had a spin. You could hear the squeal of tyres in the background of the shot. So there is the stricken McLaren that will hopefully get fired up and pointing in the right direction. But yeah, that is from first in the group to last in Group GTC almost, isn't it, of the 3 Lamborghinis at least for poor old James Webb, so he'll see what he might be able to do. I think that the Webb's Lamborghini is a slightly earlier evolution, isn't it, of the Super Trofeo car, so there will have been some changes and upgrades to the 2 cars that have now managed to sneak through, as Steve Burgess is still feeling the pinch. Can Hugo Cook do anything here? Yes, he gets himself alongside. Can he stay in front this time? Yes, he can. Last time he tried that, he couldn't quite get the Mercedes in front of the Radical. He's done that. There's a bit of a wiggle on exit there. Now the thing for Hugo Cook is, in a straight line, can he just about do enough on the run-up towards Brooklands to try and hang on to the lead? He'll go defensive, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is the point. Steve's now doing push to the outside, which is the right thing for Hugo, but we know how quick that is, and Hugo should have this now with the traction we saw from Luffield, so hopefully that is a done deal for Hugo Cook, who's passing over to Mark Sutton, and hopefully that's it for them. That's the race sort of done and dusted, but we know they have that 20-second new entrant penalty, so that adds a lot into it as well.
That's it, yeah, because Hugo Cook is driving with the pro, Marcus Clutton. They have to remain stationary for 75 seconds, but because they're a new entrant to the championship for this weekend, they pick up an extra 20 seconds in the pits. So relative to the Radical he's just taken the place away from, they'll be stationary for an extra 35 seconds in the pit lane, and that takes some making up. The 2 Formula Woman cars have got themselves together now as well, so that is Erica Hoffman and Sarah Misa absolutely together. Look in the mirrors, there is also Ria Lucas at the wheel of the Veluga car, and the car that's ahead of them is worth mentioning because I said earlier on we've not had many entrants in Group GTA so far this season, but ahead of them is the Group GTA Ginetta at this stage, and that is going to be Paul Maxfield that has started behind the wheel of that orange Ginetta.
Yeah, he has partnered with Connor Flynn, who I went and did ice driving with, funnily enough. Very talented driver on the ice, so it'll be interesting to see what he's like on the tarmac. I'm sure we'll have a discuss over it after the race, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do.
It'll be interesting to see what Chris Hart might be able to do to try and unlock the door to the lead of Group GTH, but for the moment Will Dendy is more than up to the task of hanging on to the lead of Group GTH. You can see him using all of the curbs on the run in towards Copse Corner. Very fast approach even in the GT4 cars in towards Copse Corner. Try and use all of the curbs but not too much on the exit. And again, another flash of the lights for Chris Hart. That is not going to worry Will Dendy. He'll be fully focused on what's going on ahead of him at the moment, and a flash of the lights from the car behind will not be any sort of distraction. But for Chris Hart, anything he can try might just work. You never know. So again, together, again, you look at the balance of performance. I hate to use the word because people do complain about it, but the technical people at GT Cup seem to be doing it again, because whether it be Mercedes and McLaren's at the sharp end of the race overall, or in Group GTH Mercedes and McLaren's here, nobody's getting away from anybody else.
As a racing driver, the BOP is the most talked about thing in the world. It's never ever right, but when you look at it really from the outside, it is incredible. So many different engines, and the 76 car is being turned around, and now that's out of the loop. So usually that is by a helping hand there. It's not usually that common to spin there. And as we saw Graham Tilley driving off, so maybe that is a caught red-handed sort of thing. But going back onto the BOP, trying to get all these engines and drive shafts and everything to be equal, to create the same lap time, it's so difficult. And hats off to GT Cup for creating this great racing series.
Yeah, I mean, they do it with a mixture of adjusting lambda sensors on cars, adjusting ride heights on cars, adjusting boost pressures on cars. There's a range of different things they do, isn't it, to try and equalise whether it's a front engine normally aspirated car, a rear end or a mid-engined turbocharged or twin turbocharged car. There's so many things that have to be factored in, and it's a bit of a thankless task really to try and understand how you can equate the performance of them all. But on the whole, yeah, with whinges aside, it will suit some drivers at some circuits and not at others. On the whole, it works. And here we are, look, Group GTC is still not fully resolved, because if you look in the background, there's Roy Millington's Ferrari now that wants in on the fun as well, and his car runs to Ferrari European specification, so it is a Group GTC car. So Lamborghini, Ferrari, all in the same shot, first, second, third, fourth in the group, fighting over what will be 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th overall.
It's brilliant, isn't it, seeing all these four cars in a row. And hats off to Charlotte Birch as well, who's keeping up with these very established drivers. So it's very good for her to see her in this battle. And, you know, it's great to see all four of them in the same shot. And I'm sure when the pros get in and when Jensen gets in, it's going to be even more interesting again.
Let's just have a quick look now. I think that was Jensen's helmet that just went through there. I'm just going to have another double quick check, because we have, I'm going to say, come in for criticism about misidentifying drivers, but it's largely based on the information that's provided to us, and that information ultimately comes from the team. So I'm just going to have a quick look. Charlotte Birch, first driver in this pit stop race, is what the official notification was, so we'll stick with it at this stage. But yeah, if it is Charlotte, she's doing a brilliant job. She's come on in leaps and bounds this year to get used to this car. Ian Logie, having got past Mike Price a lap or so ago, isn't really pulling away. Ian Logie, surprisingly, just seems a bit un-Ian Logie-ish this weekend.
Yeah, he just seems to not be sort of in the rhythm that he usually is. We know how fast Ian is. You look at every championship he ever goes to races.
Quick.
He is really quick, one of the best dams out there.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see him sort of struggling a little bit. So maybe it's an issue with the car setup, or...
Yeah, I'm not... Is it struggling, or is it just not shining to the same degree today? I'm really not sure, but yeah, Ian Logie, it's great to see him back in the championship. I say he missed the previous round because he was racing a GT4 Mercedes at Portimao with great effect, himself and John Minshaw and Phil Keane, and I forget the lady that was sharing it with him. Can't remember. Yeah, foreign lady, is it? Yeah, they won the class, didn't they? So back to GT Cup duties for this weekend, and at the moment sitting there in third place and trying to see whether he can close in on the cars ahead. Traffic is now going to start to be the key. So Steve Burgess trying to weave his way through and past the car of Erica Hoffman. Should pick that off as they head down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Already Hugo Cook, our race leader, has successfully picked off the first batch of traffic and has now built, since taking the lead of the race, over a 3-second lead. So impressive stuff from Hugo. You know, I personally haven't seen him driving a lot of GT3 cars. I know he's driven this car a few times, but first time we've seen him in GT Cup. Impressive stuff from a youngster.
Yeah, I've actually known Hugo for quite a while now, so I've been sort of watching him sort of develop a little bit, and I seem to remember hearing that he was driving a Z4 GT3 at 14, 15 years old around Anglesey. So he's you know, he's driven these GT3s before, but not in this sort of competitive environment. So you know, for him it's interesting, and he is doing really well.
is doing fabulously well. He has celebrated his 18th birthday just yesterday. Charlotte Birch coming under pressure from James Webb. Roy Millington trying to close in as well as they head over the start-finish line at the wing, so they're only halfway around the lap for the configuration of the circuit that we are on today. And looks as though Roy Millington is slowly edging up, isn't he? His Ferrari was well out of shot a few laps ago. Well, it's now in shot most of the time, isn't it? Which suggests that he is closing in. And a quick look at the lap times. Yeah, he's closing in, not by a great deal. Not by a great deal at all.
As we just saw a mistake from Charlotte Birch. She just went a little bit too hot into the loop, and that's all it costs. You know, one little mistake, braking too late, and that is causing overtake. So that's what you learn when you drive these cars day in, day out, is how much that little bit, 1 meter too late, can cost you.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced that it's Charlotte behind the wheel, but we'll stick with the official information. And we can see.
I think I saw a blue helmet.
Yeah.
So. No, that is Charlotte Birch. That is Charlotte Birch. So she's doing an incredible
brilliant job. Absolutely brilliant job. Yeah, best race that Charlotte's done so far, and spurred on the team, I'm sure, this weekend to try and outperform expectations from where they were 24 hours ago, but particularly mentally and emotionally after the incident that befell poor old Warren Gilbert, who'll be looking on, and I'm sure smiling away here with what the Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini is doing. But she's going to feel the pinch now, isn't she? Because Roy Millington is behind her, and Lucky Kira's dropped behind them all, has he not?
That's just what I noticed. I think Lucky must have had a mistake somewhere, but he's dropped behind all of them. So that was technically for the lead in GTC. So that was a very important move from Tom Webb. So we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, it was, by the look of things, it was the final sector of the previous lap. So Lucky Kira was about 5 seconds, 6 seconds slower through that final sector, and that's the short sector. So it's either Brooklands, Lovefield, or Woodcote where he made the mistake, and you'd expect it to be Brooklands or Lovefield, wouldn't you? Probably where he's run a bit too wide, got into the dirty tarmac and lost a bit of time.
Brooklands is usually the culprit for that. Lovefield's quite an easy corner to not make mistakes because it's so slow, but Brooklands, sometimes when you brake it, the rear just comes down a little bit, and the corner, because you're trail braking the whole way through it, one little mistake, it costs you a lot.
Good little fight going on between the two purple McLarens. Number 77, the Greystone car of Mark Hopton, coming under pressure from the car that sits directly behind it. New to the championship for this weekend is that McLaren that's weaving one way and then weaving the other. I don't think as yet, though, that Rob Young is going to be able to squeeze his way past, or is he? Yes, he does. Yep, so he gets past Mark Hopton. Through goes the number 71 car, gains the place. Nice to see another new car out in GT Cup for this weekend.
However, I do believe that is a GTB car.
It is running in GTB so because it's got subtly different aero, hasn't it?
Yes, so I think that also means it might have a little bit more power as well. But I've got to say the livery on that car does look amazing. It's a really standout livery.
It looks like it's the same colour car as the Joker has in Batman, isn't it? Almost.
Exactly.
Will Dendy still sticking his elbows out. Chris Hart still not going away. These two have been locked together lap after lap after lap. Well, they've still got plenty of time to keep squabbling away, because the pit window for this particular batch of cars doesn't open for the best part of another 9.5 minutes at the moment. But the pit window for the first batch of cars, which is those running in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC, which in reality scoops up the top 13 cars and a bit more in this race, they are about to see the pit window open in about 4 minutes time. So we will start to see probably another couple of laps. We might start to see the first pit stop activity taking place. So Will Dendy, good job he's done so far this season. He's sort of stepped into this team, himself, Patrick Collins and Russ Lindsay, 3 drivers trying to share the car throughout the start of the season. I think Russ Lindsay has stepped aside from driving duties for this weekend, but when Will's been behind the wheel, that car has really come alive, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's done really well. You look at every single qualifying session he's done as well. He's been in the top 3 almost every time, so it's very good to see that he can jump in the car and do that sort of job. And we know Chris is no slouch in the GT4 car, but we also know that Chris can be a little bit aggressive in the GT4, so I'm sure staying behind him for this long is definitely sort of missing up the visor for Chris, so I'm sure we'll see a move for the lead appearing soon.
This is the car that is leading the championship overall. It is currently running 3rd in Group GTH in the hands of young James Wallace. And, well, whilst this car in this particular race might not have the pace, it's also got to remain stationary for an extra 30 seconds compared to the 2 cars ahead of it currently in Group GTH. So that's a tough call for Sam Mayer-Lochner to jump on board. all they need to do, and I was suggesting at the beginning of the weekend, is just come away from Silverstone with some good championship points. It doesn't matter if you don't win your group or finish second or even third in your group. Good haul of points is all you need to do now when you're leading the championship, isn't it? Stay consistent.
Precisely. These championships, there's so many rounds. I mean, 4 rounds in a weekend. It's you just have to keep scoring. That's the key to winning this championship, as I should know. But yeah, just keep scoring points, and it will come in the end. So.
Into the pit lane comes the number 62 Ferrari. Now, if I've got my maths right, that's a Group GTB car, so it shouldn't be in the pit lane for at least another 7 or 8 minutes yet. So that is clearly an unscheduled stop for that car. So we'll have to wait and see as to whether it makes its way back out onto the track. Now, Charlotte Birch is starting to feel the pressure once more. She's running second in Group GTC. That is 11th place overall, but Roy Millington's Ferrari is ganging up, and Lucky Kira, following his mistake a few laps ago in the black Lamborghini, wants in on the fun as well. And whilst these three are fighting, it's just allowing the light blue car of James Webb to pull away in the lead of the group.
There's nothing better than when you're at that car in first and you see these cars behind you battling, and you just think, happy days, this is it, I'll just get away and do what I can do. As we see, the best thing in racing is tester tape, so that fixes any issues you have, so hopefully that can get back out and get racing again. Yeah,
gaffer tape solves a 1,000 issues when it comes to a race car, and on the big long endurance races, what you do see is teams. Oh, that's Lucky Kira's. Yeah, rear wing failure on Lucky Kira's car. Now, is he aware of that? If not, he'll get to a fast corner, particularly Abbey that's coming up, and he'll soon be made aware that that rear wing has failed.
Yeah, you can't see much out of these wing mirrors in these GT cars, and especially in a rear engine car. So hopefully he does realise, because that will soon get very loose when he goes into Abbey. So
team should hopefully be on the radio immediately to let him know on that, and it's likely to bring about a black and orange flag as well, isn't it? Because the officials will have no idea as to if that wing fails. Not only is it a danger to Lucky Kira, but it's also a danger to fellow competitors. So I think black and orange flag is probably going to happen, but Lucky being Lucky, he will drive the wheels off the thing until he's told otherwise.
What I'd say is, for Lucky, he's very close to the pit stop window. If he can keep it on the track, they might be able to use some tester tape, as I just said, to try and get that wing back on and get back out in the race. The problem is at Silverstone, there's so much load, isn't there, going onto that wing, that you've got to have it absolutely secure. If it's any chance that it's going to fail, then I don't think gaffer tape will be up to the job, as Roy Millington sends one up the inside of Charlotte Birch at the wheel of the Top Cups Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini. Charlotte fights back round the outside at Brooklands. She hangs onto it and has the inside at Luffield, and then the door is open, which allows Lucky Kira to try and sneak through and ahead of Roy Millington. Well, it's not affecting Lucky in terms of the handling of the car. He may be aware, he may not be aware, but either way, that car is still flying. Poor old Roy Millington lost 2 places there, and I think Lucky Kira is going to gain another, is he? Yeah, up the inside of Charlotte Birch, heading in towards Copse. Might have half a rear wing, but he's flying. I think he's got the Evo 3 Lamborghini Super Trofeo. I've never seen anything like this. He's got a broken wing and he's still passing people, so that is incredible. I think Lamborghini might have to make an aero change.
It makes the car even more competitive when it's just got downforce on one side. So Lucky Kira works his way out of Chapel and onto the Hanger Straight, having gone past Charlotte Birch and Roy Millington over the course of that particular lap. 25.5 minutes of the race to go, which means that we are going to see what's the pit window pretty much open now, are we? Yeah, so the pit window will now be open, I think, for these cars. So we might have the odd one or two coming into the pits, and indeed, Hugo Cook, Steve Burgess head into the pit lane as the pit window opens for the first batch of cars.
Yeah, Ian Logie will probably stay out as he's an average driver. There's no point him coming in now to sort of risk being in the melee and the fighting line. So as you see Mark Scotland getting in the car, really interested to see what he can sort of do in that against Callum McLeod when he gets in. So it's not his usual seat that he usually gets in, not Merck, it's usually McLaren. So be interested to see what he can do.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how Marcus gets on. He's driven the GT4 Mercedes far more than I think he's ever driven the GT3, hasn't he? So we'll have to wait and see. There is a black and orange flag coming out, we gather, for Lucky Kira. I did suggest that would be the case. If there's any question that the car's got an issue, they're going to have to bring it in on safety grounds. But as you suggested, pit window is open. They can deal with that as part of the pit stop. So that's worked out quite well for Lucky Kira.
Exactly. I think a couple of zip ties and a bit of test tape should fix that. So hopefully they can get back out and you know, those positions he got with the broken wings should still stay if they can fix it.
Yeah, maybe lock wire it in quickly as well, or something like that, just to make sure you've got plenty of security on it. You'll have to, because it's a black and orange flag, you'll have to satisfy the scrutineers. It's not just a case of the team thinking it's done and dusted. Because you've got the black and orange flag, the scrutineers will be all over that, won't they? They will not release the car until they're happy it's safe.
Exactly. The black and orange flag means it's an issue that you cannot see, or you might not be aware of as a driver. We call it the meatball flag as drivers, because that's just what it looks like. So yeah, you have to satisfy the scrutineers, and they'll be there looking, and they should be happy if it's all straight.
Into the pit lane comes Adrian Watt, so the Group GTC Porsche heads into the pit lane. The second or third time we've seen Adrian Watt out over the course of this season. He's not been a regular competitor, but it'd be nice to see a bit more of him as he brings the GT3 Cup car in towards the pit lane. Michael O'Brien now has jumped on board the number 67 Orange Racing, powered by JMH McLaren. And that is a car that is going to be well worth watching, because Simon Orange and Michael O'Brien are leading the Group GT3 Championship table and are second in the overall standings, aren't they? So there'll be cars to watch, I would have thought, that particular car now in the hands of Michael O'Brien. Yeah,
Michael's going to have to drive the wheels off that McLaren, but we know if there is a man to drive the wheels off McLaren, it's definitely Michael. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can catch Clutton. Obviously, Clutton has that bigger pit stop penalty, I think.
5 seconds difference, yeah, so 5 seconds shorter for the McLaren.
Exactly, so that could play into the hands of Michael. So we're going to see, and I think they'll be close when they come out the pits. And it's going to be a really good race after the pit stops.
As you suggested, Ian Logie has stayed out towards the tail end of the pit window, so the number 16 Mercedes had picked up the lead of the race, but Ian is now into the pit lane this time through. So I think that is pretty much all of those in the first batch of cars that are either in the process of finishing their pit stops or have already finished them. There goes the Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini back out onto the circuit, and this in theory should be, it's not quite at the moment because Ian Logie of course was pitting later, but in theory this should be, I think, the race leader, should it not? Marcus Clutton leading the way. Depends where Steve Burgess fed back out after his pit stop.
Yeah, we've got to wait for Steve to come out. Steve's now got a clear track in front of him, so he could make some fast lap times. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see. You know, if Steve does come in front, if he can hold on to that lead, and obviously we're going to see Michael coming up, sort of onto the back of Clutton is my prediction. With Clutton not really knowing the car that well. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle between them two.
Good shout out for the number 26 McLaren as well of Tamer Shahan. We've just seen it's just heading through shot now. That's the car that was disqualified from the race earlier on, bumped to the back of the grid, therefore had to start in 35th position. And it is now up into 22nd position and lying 6th in the group. So that's a brilliant run that car's had.
That is a brilliant run. These GT4 cars, GTH cars, sorry, they're much easier to pass around Silverstone than a GT3, and he's really shown it. You know, making that many places up is not easy in 20 minutes, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do after the pit stop window and see what he ends up in this race.
Yeah, and he's scheduled to hand that car over to former Mazda MX-5 champion Tom Roach for part 2 of the race, the Car Chase Heroes backed car. So turning their way towards the conclusion of the lap. Now the pit window has just opened for the second batch of cars, so if you're in Group GTB, Group GTH, Group GTA, you could peel your way in towards the pit lane now. There we can see that getting ready is going to be James Kell, ready to jump on board the car that Darren Kell will vacate, but I think the pit lane, having just been emptied from all of the cars, is going to fill up again shortly, as all of the cars from Group GTB, Group GTH, which is the most populous group that we've got, and the single car from Group GTA will all dive their way into the pit lane shortly. We can tell we've got the pros back on board. The fastest lap of the race has just gone the way of Marcus Clutton, wheel of the number 66 Mercedes, 2 minutes 0.759, and everybody descends upon the pit. So second pit window is open, in they all come.
Yeah, exactly. Here comes the melee, is the way to say it. But yeah, as you see, Michael O'Brien has just gone 5 tenths faster than Marcus Clutton in the first sector alone. So that's really interesting. That's a big chunk. So I'm sure you'll be on the back of him very soon.
Here's this lead battle for Group GTH as well. It is still Will Dendy fighting away with the car of Chris Hart. Those two have been embroiled in a fantastic battle. Remember, both of those cars fighting for first and second in Group GTH both only stopped for 60 seconds as well. So that is a battle that really ought to continue as and when they've come in and swapped the drivers over. So it's been good value, this one so far. Chris Hart has always been there. Now, is he playing a waiting game, or has he just not had the opportunity? Difficult to know, Sam, really.
I think it's probably the straight line speed of that McLaren is just stopping him from getting the run. And we see it's got no wing now, so the Evo 4 now we've got the Batmobile.
That is going to be a rocket ship in a straight line, but it might be a bit tricky through the corners, particularly this bit. Beckett.
Yeah, he seems to be struggling a lot, so you just have to bring that home and try and get as many points as possible. But yeah, I'm surprised he actually let that go in the rear wing. So, but yeah, in a straight line, I'm sure we'll see it break the speed traps every single lap.
That's the car that leads the Group GCC Championship standings and is third overall in the championship at the moment, Lucky Kira. So yeah, he needs to just keep scooping up some points in reality. So with Michael O'Brien just having popped in the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 0.155, he is going to look to see what he might be able to do to close in on the cars that are ahead of him. So Steve Burgess in the Radical, through all of this, has taken up the lead of the race by 22, almost 23 seconds from this car here, the dark blue and pink Mercedes in the hands of Ian Loggy, who's got 8.5 seconds in hand between himself and Marcus Clutton in the Mercedes he's taken over from Hugo Cook. And then it is Tom Barrow at the wheel of the Group GTB BMW, the number 20 car, that's up to 4th at the moment, Sam, but he has not pitted yet.
No, we still have a few more people to pit, and the GTH cars are still cycling to the pit stops, so we've got to wait for them to do their pit stops and then see where we end up. But I think Ian's is a legitimate second place at the minute, so it'll be interesting to see how much Marcus can catch in. I mean, if Ian can catch Burgess, only 17 minutes left, so the 22-second lead, he's almost got to be taking out a second a lap, so it's going to be difficult.
We'll see how Ed Peed gets on as well, because he's just jumped on board this blue and yellow Mercedes that is following Ian Loggy. There is a lap between the pair of them, but it's good to see Ed Peed back in the championship, former runner-up in the Renault Clio UK Championship on 3 separate occasions. He's raced in Formula 3 Asia, Porsche Carrera GB as well, amongst many other things. So it's good to see Ed Peed back in the championship. Benny Simonson has now taken over the Roy Millington-driven Ferrari in the early stages of the race, so we'll have to see as to where they are running in Group GTC. Now, Benny is the pro. The other cars that were there in Group GTC, which Charlotte Birch has handed over to Jensen Lunn, James Webb has stayed behind the wheel, so arguably you could say that the Group GTC Ferrari of Benny Simonson is in a good position, because he might not be leading the group, but he's the pro and he's going to close in on AMS.
Exactly, and it's surprising how much quicker a pro can go than an AM. No offence to any AMs, but the pros just seem to be able to just
it's their job.
Faster. It is. Yeah. They do it day in, day out, so that's why they get paid to do it. So it is amazing to see, when you can find 2 more seconds than anyone else, and that's why they get paid to do it. So it's be interesting to see what he can do as well.
Well, Callum McLeod is also doing it for Mike Price in the light green Mercedes, because that is the only car now that has dipped, only one of 2 cars dipped into the 1 minute 59 second bracket, 1:59.909. The other car that's done so is this car here, Michael O'Brien, as he works his way past the wing and is looking to see if he can close in on Marcus Clutton that lies ahead. Now, Michael O'Brien last time through was 0.8 of a second quicker than Marcus Clutton in the number 66 Mercedes, so he's on his way, that's for sure.
It's very difficult to learn a car very quickly. From what I heard, Marcus didn't really get much running in the practice session, so this is almost his first few laps in the car. So to try and work out a completely opposite car, front engine compared to the rear engine of the McLaren, trying to sort of work out how to drive it flat out in a race with a car behind you, it's not the easiest of tasks. So I'm sure Marcus will speed up, but right now he's only doing a 2:07 compared to Michael O'Brien doing a 59.9.
The last few cars are just in the process of heading to the pits at the moment. That includes Chris Hart, who was almost one of the last to stop at the wheel of the number 69 Make Happen Racing Mercedes. He was, of course, having that good little squabble with the number 17 McLaren of Will Dendy, which is about to be gobbled up by Mike Price. So this Mercedes is one of the last of those really to pit. The other car that was late to pit was James Wallace, handing over the number 50 Porsche to Sam Mayer-Lotnam, who is, of course, those 2 drivers leading the championship. It'll be interesting to see how Sam Mayer-Lotnam gets on as well, because I'm not sure whether you're aware, Sam Neary, but Sam's a stunt driver, broke a finger and his jaw in 4 places not long ago, and is still feeling, I think, slightly under the weather this weekend.
Yeah, I have heard about that up and down the pit lane. He seems to have the dream job of most people, but obviously it comes with risks. So, proper trooper, he's still pedaling on, so it will be interesting to see what he can do with the issues he's got inside the car. But Michael O'Brien again, setting a purple and doing a purple lap time. So he is really on a mission right now.
Yeah, it may well be important as well, setting that fastest lap of the race. And it does score you one additional championship point, and that's all it needs to win a championship ultimately. You can certainly see he's closing in on that number 66 Mercedes, so despite the fact that Marcus Clutton is pushing as hard as he possibly can, he is still getting caught by the charging Orange Racing powered by JMH number 67 McLaren in the hands of Michael O'Brien, who is bringing with him, I would say, Ed Peed as well. It's such a shame that Andre Borodin lost all of that time at the wheel of the Greystone GT McLaren in the early stages, because Ed Peed is down in 16th position at the wheel of the number 24 McLaren, but he's hanging on to the coattails of the faster cars, as you'd expect from Ed.
Yeah, this is the thing. Ed hasn't really driven these cars much, so he's got, Michael O'Brien in front of him. He's doing one of the fastest laps. This is the point where you just copy the guy in front of you and learn quite a lot from where they're braking and how their car's behaving. And you can pick up so much just by following someone. It's actually surprising. It's almost like having the racing line on in a racing game when you got someone in front of you who's faster, and it always drags you up. You see Michael O'Brien do another purple sector, so this is 2 purple sectors, so it's going to be, I wonder what the lap time's going to be. I think it'll be in the low 59s. So
it's always easier to chase, isn't it? The be chased. It was something that I could always, when I was back many years ago when I was kart racing, far easier to focus on the cars ahead and chase it down. Hated it when people were doing the opposite to me. Didn't like it.
Exactly. What I tend to do is when I got someone following me from behind, I tend to try not to brake at the corner and just try and carry more speed and or lift off earlier when some of the brake lights don't come on. And it always confuses the car behind because they're just copying you, and it always causes them an issue. So that's a little tip: if you are following me, I will not press my brakes. So it might cause you an issue.
The trick's up your sleeve, absolutely. So up towards Stowe Corner. This is lap number 18 that we're on at the moment. Marcus Clutton pushing hard, the former British GT champion. He has got Michael O'Brien closing in on him. Remember, this car that is running there in what is 4th position on the road is closing on an invitation class car. So you could argue Michael O'Brien doesn't need to overtake Marcus Clutton because it's an invitation class car. It's not going to score championship points, is it, this weekend? So he could just stay there and score the same amount of points.
It's all about pride, Mark. It's
I know.
all about pride. That's all you race for, is pride, really. When you see that car in front of you, that's all you want to do. He is your target. So you're going to pass him. That's no question about it.
I'm going to say hats off to Lucky Kira as well. Almost gained the lead of the group whilst he got a broken rear wing on the car. So they've ripped the rear wing off. And his lap times actually haven't dropped that much, Lucky Kira. Let's just have a quick look at what he's been doing at the wheel of the number 247 car. They have dropped off quite a bit, but not as much as I would have thought with no rear wing. When you think the fast sections of this circuit through Maggotts and Beckett's, that car must be an absolute nightmare. And Abbey in particular, it must be horrible through Abbey.
It must be. Having no rear wing on a car is horrendous, but I also believe it's David McDonald in the car now.
Oh, it will be, sorry, yes,
so,
it will be, yeah.
He's probably a bit more equipped to try and drive it, but I'm sure he'll have some fun stories to tell me about after all the moments he's had to the high-speed corner, so I'll definitely ask him about them.
Will Dendy is still at the wheel of number 17 McLaren, leading Group GTH at this stage. So Will Dendy is leading that by about 9 seconds now. So not quite sure whether it was a slow pit stop for Make Happen Racing or whether maybe Stephen Walton hasn't quite got the same pace in the car today as Chris Hart has got. But Will Dendy is looking very comfortable in Group GTH now for the win in the group. And for what will be the championship leading car of Sam Mayer-Lochner, he is now feeling the pinch because he's got the Paddock Motorsport McLaren of Tom Roach right behind him. Now this is for position, it's for 21st and 22nd position, it's for 6th and 7th in the group, and that's been a great drive from Tamer Shahan and Tom Roach in the number 26 car, because that was the car that was disqualified earlier on, had to start off the back.
Exactly. It shows you how quick this McLaren can be, run by Paddock Motorsport. We know how efficient they are at running these McLarens now. You've done it for a couple of years, so really hats off to them to give them the car to do this, and making up almost 10, 12 places.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're going to make up another one. It's no easy task.
Well, Tamer Shahan's driving has come on beautifully this year. Tom Roach, we know, is quick from what we've seen him do in Mazda MX-5s, whether it be Mark 1s or Mark 3s, what we've seen him do in Ginetta Super Cup and Porsche Carrera Cup, amongst other things as well. The man who runs his own supercar experience company, Car Chase Heroes. We've also got the Ferrari back out. We did see it, minus rear bumper, so not quite sure that they tried the gaffer tape, Sam. On this occasion, it didn't work.
I think what has happened is they've seen the Lucky Kira car and gone, we'll make our own Evo kit as well. I think all these GTC cars are making their own aero. So I don't think it's the gaffer tape that failed. I think it's them trying to find those 3 extra tenths.
Steve Burgess threading his way through the traffic. Now, a bit like buses, you wait for one win and maybe two come along on the same day for Steve Burgess. I really don't want to put the commentator's curse on it, but Steve was hoping that he'd build a bit of an advantage in the early stages of the race. That didn't quite happen, but what he did do was nail the pit stop and get straight back on it as soon as he'd got back behind the wheel of the car following his call into the pit. So he's still leading by a very comfortable 16 seconds with only 9 minutes to go from this car here, Ian Loggy, who is looking as though he may well be on for another win in Group GT3 on his return to the championship.
Yeah, we're seeing these, seeing Marcus and Michael also catching though, but that gap has come down about 6 seconds. So and the last lap was 3 seconds a lap faster for Ian. So I wonder if that's just traffic or whether that's pure pace. So maybe the tyres going off on the Radical a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ian can actually make this gap make this gap come even lower, and then maybe fight for the lead. But right now it looks like it's Steve's race to lose.
Yeah, it's only about 4 laps, so he's going to have to continually close at 3 seconds per lap, isn't he, to even catch Steve Burgess, let alone then get the opportunity to go through and past. And maybe Steve is just driving with a little bit in reserve potentially. So we'll wait and see as to whether it is going to be a double group for GTO win and a double overall win for the Radical. We also need to see as to what Michael O'Brien might be able to do at the wheel of the number 67 McLaren, because he still sits there 4th in the race overall. But remember, the car ahead of him is not scoring championship points, Marcus Clutton. He is an invitation car for this weekend as what is at the moment a one-off entry for himself and Hugo Cook. So he's still going to scoop up what would be second place points in Group GT3, isn't he, in reality, even if he stays where he is. So we'll have to wait and see. Leading Group GTC is the light blue Lamborghini of the Webbs, the number 13 car. Leading Group GTB is number 20 Tom Barrow's BMW. Leading Group GTH, we know, is number 17 Will Dendy with the McLaren. And Group GTA is going to be the Connor Flynn driven Ginetta, car number 63, isn't it, currently?
Yeah. So we just saw the 76 car go around the outside of that Will Dendy, so I thought that was a risk. I'd never ever go around the outside of there on the loop, so they made it work, so he's happy. As we see the 2 Trade Centre Formula Women cars battling each other, so that's always interesting, an inter-team battle. So we'll see who comes out on top on that.
I know you know a few of the girls in Formula Woman. Is it do they help each other when they're on opposite side of the pit garages, or is it, do they keep themselves to themselves? What is the dynamic there? Because they are fighting tooth and nail and side by side through that section of the circuit.
I think it's the same as every team. You help each other out until you're racing.
Yeah.
So they're all trying to get a bit faster. It's only the 3rd race weekend, so they're all trying to get faster, really helping each other. But as soon as you're on track, it is racing. We just saw. So hopefully we can see that battle extending on.
Every woman for themselves, absolutely. A bit of a slide mid-corner there, though, I would say, for Steph Saw, who has arguably been one of the quicker drivers, hasn't she, of the 4 in there, and certainly is thoroughly enjoying the opportunity that she's been given to drive this DTO-prepared, Trade Centre-backed Formula Woman car in the GT Cup Championship, and is driving the wheels off the thing. Right, okay, it looks as though we have now got Marcus Clutton putting Ian Loggy under pressure for 2nd position, and Michael O'Brien has closed in. Well, Ian Loggy really struggling there, wasn't he, to try and get the car turned into the corner. Seems to have gone off the boil to a huge degree. He's lost 2nd place to Marcus Clutton. He might lose 3rd to Michael O'Brien in the McLaren before too much longer.
It just looks like the car wouldn't stop for him, to be honest. It looks like he pressed the brakes and nothing really happened, so maybe an issue, but maybe his tyre's just gone off. We see him trying to defend into Brooklands, but I think that's a dumb move as it is. So, Michael O'Brien passed, and both of them passed with ease, which is surprising with Ian Loggy. Usually it's quite a tough overtake, so he must be struggling with some sort of car setup or just tyres, so it's unlike Ian to see him like this.
Yeah, he's a ruthless competitor, Ian Loggy. The Radical's slowing. All of a sudden something has happened, and Steve Burgess, the race leader, is slowing coming out of Luffield. Now he gets going again. Was that an old control and delete where he had to reset the car? But he was leading by a country mile not long ago, and now all of a sudden he finds himself down in 4th position, I'm afraid to say. Still leading the group, largely because we've got a lower entry in Group GTO this weekend, but that is surely the one that got away.
Oh, that is a proper shame for Steve. It looked like it just sort of slipped out of gear because you saw it clunk back in. So maybe it just went back into neutral, and and that was the issue.
And that makes it even more important, that overtake that Marcus Clutton just did on Ian Loggy, because ultimately this now is the battle for the lead. Marcus Clutton and Michael O'Brien fighting for the overall lead. The invitation class car leading. Michael O'Brien will want to claim victory on the track, but he also will be conscious of the fact that if he stays where he is, they would still pick up the points for the win. And there is a spin, I'm afraid, for Jody Sloss.
Yeah, probably just gassing up a little bit too much through the loop. So yeah, that's just sort of novice experience and just getting used to these used tyres, and they are definitely providing less grip, so trying to work that out is a difficulty. But we'll see. Marcus Clutton gets stuck behind that GT4, and this will give Michael O'Brien a run, so we'll see if he can go down the inside, but it's risky when he's overtaking another car. But Michael, we know the McLaren's quick in that straight line, so he's right on the bumper of Marcus Clutton, so we'll see if he can pass.
Yeah, good driving by both of the back markers there to move out of harm's way and let the lead battle go through. So they'll work their way through the left-hander at Aintree, flat out in a GT3 car, use all of the curb on the exit. Michael O'Brien picks up a bit of the tow from Marcus Clutton, but as you suggested earlier on, you get to Brooklands, is he going to be in the aero wash still? Yes, he is. So that's going to affect his turning ability when they get towards the top end of the straight.
Yeah, I think the McLaren doesn't struggle as much as the Mercedes, as it doesn't rely on the front end as much. The Mercedes really struggles with the aero wash. I think the McLaren, with it being a bit more of a slippier car, we call it, with the aero, it doesn't struggle as much, and you should see that with Michael Beckett's. Michael just has to try and find where he's quicker and make the move.
Do you think that might be also because Mercedes is front engine and McLaren's rear engine because of the weight distribution potentially?
It could be, but funnily enough, Mercedes is a 50-50 weight distribution, which is incredible when the engine is in the front. So, it is what it is. Sometimes you just can't fix that. It uses so much of the flat floor, the Mercedes, and I think that is the issue with the aero wash.
Well, this will be a great result if Marcus Clutton can hang on to it. Hugo Cook making his debut in the GT Cup Championship, but it's not done and dusted there yet because there's still traffic that we'll need dealing with, and it will be the number 25 McLaren and former GT Cup champion Adam Hadfield that is next up. They're going to want to try and thread their way through, and for Marcus Clutton, he can't afford to be compromised by any traffic, so the pivotal point could be exactly where they meet this next batch of traffic coming up. So they're going to meet it right on the exit of what will be Club Corner, and that is about right, is it, for Marcus Clutton? He might have to blend the throttle a little bit, and it is going to compromise him, and Michael O'Brien might get the run towards Abbey. Yeah,
that is right at the point on the track where you do not want to catch a car, and this also is another point where you don't want to catch a car, and they're going to catch it. So Marcus just had the big moment turning into Abbey, so that is a big moment he just had. So they both passed, but Michael's going to look for the inside, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Michael Broadhouse doesn't want anything to do with this. He stays well and truly out of the way and is not going to get involved in the lead battle. But Michael O'Brien was trying to see whether he might be able to look for a little bit of an overlap heading up the inside in towards Aintree, but that doesn't work. They're going to be heading on to their final lap of the race this next time through. Look at the amount of rubber that's been distributed around as well from these cars as they are heading around the circuit. Now, Michael O'Brien, he's got, another 3.66 miles to try and work out as to whether he can take the victory in this one. As I say, if he doesn't, they would still pick up the points for the win, because the car of Marcus Clutton that is shared between himself and Hugo Cook is an invitation class car, so wouldn't count for championship scoring this weekend, if my understanding of the regulations are correct.
It's all about that pride again. It's all about pride this now. This is, tooth and nail, they are going at it. So this is just who is better. That's all it is inside the cars. That's how they feel. Marcus will not let him pass if it's the last thing he does. So hopefully they don't come together, as we see that Evo 4 Super Trofeo with the rear wing gone. So that will play into at the high-speed corner. It's going to be a real big issue to try and pass these cars.
So on to the hangar straight for the final time. The clock is showing there's just 3/4 of a minute to go. You can see that Marcus Clutton is still weaving around to try and break a little bit of the tow that Michael O'Brien is picking up as they head up towards Stowe Corner. Michael O'Brien jinks out just to show the nose of the car to Marcus Clutton, but the former British GT champion is not going to buy into that, so they'll work their way in towards the braking area for the Vale. Time and opportunities are running out for Michael O'Brien. They've got the traffic just up the road. That could be the catalyst for change, couldn't it?
Yeah, as I said, that Super Trofeo, it's risky through these high-speed corners. We know it is, so he's getting right out the way as he knows he has no rear wing. But these GT4 cars, they need to just stay out of the way of this battle, because this is going to get a bit feisty.
Yeah, Jody Sloss could be the person that could play a pivotal part in this race. All they go, drivers left, drivers right of Jody Sloss. Marcus Clutton manages to hang on to the lead of the race. Michael O'Brien opted to take the other opportunity to go past Jody Sloss, who was sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time as far as the race leaders were concerned. There's still traffic to deal with. It's going to be John Lancaster at the wheel of the red and white Greystone McLaren that is going to be next to be caught. And then is it Phil Keane just up the road thereafter? So there's still traffic that could play a pivotal role in this race as we head up towards what will be the final couple of corners. They both managed to sneak through, so it's the run to the line that's going to decide it. And as long as Marcus Clutton gets nice and cleanly out of Luffield, he is on for a win. We've seen him win in GT Cup when he's been partnered up with Morgan Tilbrook in the McLaren so far this year, but in the absence of the Enduro Motorsport McLaren and Morgan Tilbrook, he's partnered up with Hugo Cook, and they come through to claim the win in the first pit stop race of the weekend, with Simon Orange and Michael O'Brien finishing in second place. That will suit them, won't it, of course, because they are right up there in the overall championship reckoning, second overall, but it's going to be the points for the win.
Yeah, that was a brilliant battle for the lead at the end. Having Ray jumping up and down inside the commentary box. So, no, that was brilliant. Great race from them too, and both kept it clean. A 3/10 gap at the line just shows you how competitive GT Cup is, and what a race.
And they were never far from each other, were they? Here comes Steve Burgess over the start-finish line. Oh, what could have been for Steve Burgess at the wheel of the Radical. Whatever happened on the exit of Luffield dropped him out of the lead, and he ultimately finished in 6th position. Clearly a few issues with that car, because it did drop off the pace quite significantly, didn't it, after he had those problems. Maybe there was a gear selector issue and he was having to drive around the problem. A Group GTH win is still not done and dusted yet, because Will Dendy hasn't taken the checkered flag, but it is highly likely to go the way of the number 17 McLaren, because he's got a very sizable lead, the best part of 21 seconds, hasn't he, between himself and the next of the cars coming through. The Group GTC win, I did say I thought that the Ferrari was in a good position. Now it's in the hands of Benny Simonson. Group GTC win did go the way of the Ferrari. It beat the Lamborghinis in the end.
Yeah, well, only by about 4 seconds from Charlotte Birch and Jensen Lund. So for them, 2 rounds, that's an incredible result.
Brilliant result, yeah. There goes Tom Barrow at the wheel of the Group GTB BMW over the start-finish line. He will claim the win in that one. Here comes Steve Ruston now, the number 44 car, to complete what will be the top 9, and then just the last few cars to trickle their way through, which will include this car here that is leading Group GTH. Ahead of it will be the car that will pick up the win in Group GTA, which will be Connor Flynn's Ginetta. So here comes the Team Orange powered by JMH Ginetta, chased over the start-finish line by the sister car in the hands of Will Dendy, who scoops up yet another win in Group GTH. And one final car to take the checkered flag should be Steph Saw, who will come through now at the wheel of the number 65 Formula Woman Trade Centre backed car. She'll take the checkered flag, and I think there's just one more thereafter, and then that scoops up everybody in our first pit stop race of the weekend. Of course, depending on how you got on in this race, Sam, that also now sorts out what we're going to have in terms of success penalties for tomorrow's pit stop race.
Yeah, it's a handicap, so if you have a good day on Saturday, you have a bad day on Sunday, is usually how it goes in GT Cup. So, but no, great racing really today. I'd say that's some of the best racing I've actually watched, so really happy.
Well, let's guide you through the results then for this first pit stop race of the weekend here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. Round 16 of the championship goes the way of Hugo Cook and Marcus Clutton, with Simon Orange and Michael O'Brien in second and Ian Lockie in third. Ian Campbell and Ollie Webb were fourth, ahead of Mike Price and Callum McLeod, and Steve Burgess took Group GTO as he finished in sixth. It was Graham Tilley and Will Tregurtha in seventh place. Eighth place went the way of the number 76 pairing of Leo Lucas and Bradley Ellis, and it was John Whitehouse and Steve Ruston ahead of Andre Borodin and Ed Peat that completed the top 10. In 11th place, Roy Millington and Benny Simonson picked up the win in Group GTC ahead of Charlotte Birch and Jensen Lunn, and then it was James Webb who finished in 13th, ahead of the Group GTB winner in 14th, which was Tom Barrow, and the Group GTH winner finished in 15th, which was Will Dendy. Problems for Lucky Kira, dropped his Lamborghini 2 laps off the lead in the end for himself and David McDonald, so they had issues, and I've got to say hats off also to the number 26 McLaren for its results, having worked its way through the order. Outside of the top 20, let's just have a look and pick up on the number 26 McLaren. Yeah, started at the back of the grid, finished in 21st in the end, and of course we also saw that win for the number 63 Ginetta of Paul Maxfield and Connor Flynn. So fantastic race, a busy old race, lots of cars to talk about, lots of action to talk about, and Sam, we'll do it all again tomorrow, won't we? You're joining me not for the sprint race tomorrow. We're going to have Mo Ritson in, but you're going to join me for the pit stop race tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have a nice lie-in tomorrow. I think I might wake up at 12 o'clock and then get down here for the endurance race. So, no, thank you very much for having me, and hopefully the endurance race can be just as enjoyable as it was today.
Thanks a lot to Sam Neary. We'll be hearing more from him tomorrow. But that is it from the GT Cup Championship here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit today. Remember, we do it all again tomorrow with the two sprint races and, with the sprint race and the pit stop race. There is the Top Cats Racing with Hex.com team. Charlotte Burt should be absolutely delighted with her performance in that one. Important weekend for the team. But we'll do it all again tomorrow. We're due to get our sprint race underway tomorrow at around about 2:15 in the afternoon. So thanks for joining us at Silverstone Day 1. We'll be back with you for round 17 and 18 of the GT Cup Championship tomorrow. Goodbye.